Hey guys, welcome back to Coin Knowledge. So today I want to give you guys my kind of take, my thesis on what could potentially happen with off the grid, which is potentially going to be the biggest, if not one of the biggest games to come out of Web3 this cycle, and more specifically this year, 2024, and some altcoins specifically that I'm looking at almost immediately to kind of ride the coattails of the success, but potential success and launch of off the grid for when it fully does release. And as always, if you guys get value out of these videos that we make on the channel, or if we've helped you in any way, consider subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. Your support means everything. Or if you just want to stay up to date in the crypto space. Now, if you look at off the grid, if you're not familiar with what off the grid is, and you're in crypto gaming, I don't know if you're living under a rock or not, because it is kind of all the hype and all the talk of the town in crypto gaming. I mean, right now you can play this game. I've been playing it all weekend here on the Xbox, which, yes, I've been playing a crypto game, Web3 game on console. It's been on PC for a lot longer and PS5 for a couple of weeks, but it did recently hit Xbox, I think last week. How you can join, if you have an Xbox, there's plenty of shorts and stuff like that on there. I might make one. You can just go be a part of the Xbox Insider Club and then download off the grid, and you can play it that way. But what it reminds me a lot, my hot take, because you can't really you can't post videos of the game. I don't think you can even talk about it too much. Everyone has to sign the same, non-disclosure agreements whenever you launch the game. But I'll just give you guys my opinion just on the main website here with the gameplay of the background, since, it's the best thing we can look at right now. Easily, I do think it's one of the top quality games in Web3 right now, if not the most top quality game. Now, full, disclosure, I am not a huge Battle Royale player. I'm not that big into Battle Royale games like Warzone, Fortnite, Valorant, stuff like that. But from a quality standpoint, playing the game, it's fun. I could definitely see it have the potential of be, really the next Fortnite. If there is going to be one, I could definitely see this being that. And I'm not just talking in crypto gaming or Web3. I can see this being adopted by Web2 streamers, tournaments. I could see it all happening because it's a fun game. It's definitely pretty polished. You can get in there, play trios all day. That's what I was really doing. But it is a battle royale. I mean, it does obviously have a lot of similarities to Fortnite. Again, I'm not sure of exactly what I can or can't talk about. So I'm going to keep it pretty vague. But again, hot take. The game's fun. If you like battle royales, try it out. It is a lot of fun. Very polished, and I think they said the full release should be coming this year, 2025, as we get closer to holiday season. So we'll see. But again, it's on PS5, Xbox, and PC. Once you get in there, you'll see why no one can really talk too much about it, because they have the bunch of different agreements you have to sign. But that's my opinion on Off the Grid. Pretty fun. Try it out. It's completely free. Just try it out. You don't have to have like an NFT. There's no paywall. You just get in there and try it, download it. Not much else to say. But now, if Off the Grid does launch and it does get huge success, people actually do play it in both Web 2 and Web 3 player bases. I expect for there to be a big resurgence for crypto gaming as a narrative, but more specifically, these are just a small handful of tokens in the shooting genre, avalanche kind of ecosystem that I would be looking at immediately. To ride the coattails of Off the Grid, because when their Gunzilla Guns token does launch, I expect it to launch at a high evaluation, but I don't know the evaluation. Nobody knows the exact evaluation it's going to launch at, so that is yet to be determined for when that token does launch. But if it does launch, at a high evaluation, typically people will look for more of a lower market cap alternative. So again, I can't include every single gaming altcoin in this video that I think is going to run with Off the Grid, because if gaming does generally move as a whole narrative, to the upside with Off the Grid as a major launch or catalyst, I expect all of gaming and the majority of gaming tokens to really pump. But again, if I made a video on all gaming tokens, that'd be all day long. So we're not going to do that. We're going to focus a little bit more. So a couple things I expect to run potentially. Well, one, Avalanche. I'll give you guys my opinion on all these altcoins and why I think that they are somewhat connected to Off the Grid. So with Avalanche, Off the Grid, their Gunzilla subnet is built on Avalanche subnet technology, so I do fully expect it to, help Avalanche get a little bit more liquidity, a little bit more, attention. And really at Avalanche, at a $10 billion market cap, $11 billion, if you're looking for more of a quote-unquote safety net, because nothing's obviously really safe in crypto. Avalanche is one that I'd be looking at, especially because I do believe it's a catch-up trade to Solana. I've always said that. I'm very bullish on Avalanche with everything they have going on, not just gaming, but just their whole ecosystem. I do think Avalanche currently is undervalued. I do expect it to eclipse its previous all-time highs, surpass it from the previous cycle. As far as market cap goes, 30 billion, we were almost there, 22 billion earlier on in the cycle, earlier this year. So I don't think it's crazy to think that Avalanche is going to eclipse its previous all-time highs. As far as market cap goes, so that does give us a little bit more room, a little bit over a 3x from here. And then past that, who knows what it can do, but I do think Avalanche is going to be a performer. If we're looking at a top, like a top 10, top 20 coins, Avalanche would be one that I'd be looking at. Now, when we talk about Avalanche, you kind of have to bring up the fact that Beam is that other big, gaming titan that everyone is watching this cycle, because it's Merit Circle's subnet, again, built underneath Avalanche. So if Avalanche runs, I expect Beam to also run. And because it also has its own subnet, like what we've seen or what we're going to see with the Gunzilla subnet as well. So Beam is also a mention that I would want to put in here. Now we start getting into a little bit lower market cap plays. Now again, I'm not saying that all these projects are, going to immediately pump 50, 100x. I'm not even saying they're going to do that at all. I'm just letting you guys know this is my thesis of why I think these particular altcoins could potentially pump. If there's going to be that hype, obviously this all hinges on off the grid being a hit, having a great launch, and actually, launching in a bullish market condition, which a lot of people are calling for in Q4 of this year. I agree with that statement and that stance. So if we take a look at Shrapnel, again, let's say that off the grid potentially launches our Guns token at 100 million circulating market cap. I think it's going to be higher than that personally, but nobody knows. People will look for something that is a low market cap that's very similar. Now we look at Shrapnel. Shrapnel is at a $10 million market cap, and it is that first-person shooter genre. So it does have that same shooter genre narrative that Off the Grid is going to be launching in as well. Now there is quite a bit of controversy with Shrapnel. Obviously, they've had a lot of internal problems with their team members. Some of them have been leaving. There's been some updates. So that is a discussion to have all in of itself. But when we look at Shrapnel, they do have a working product. The team hasn't, just closed up shop and completely ran away. They're still here, and the game seems solid. I think there is still going to be some hype around Shrapnel. They made it this far, and as a product, I do like Shrapnel, what they're building. There just is a couple of different, insider internal problems going on, so it does have to get brought up. You can look a little bit more into it, but we're not going to get into it in this particular video. But when we look at Shrapnel at a $10 million market cap, I do think it's undervalued currently. There has always been a dilution issue, but again, this would be more of a trade if Off the Grid does launch. There is a narrative there. All these kind of hinge on that, but that's the only time where I really would trade Shrapnel. But obviously, if there's something you're holding for the long term, that's your decision. You do you. That's my take on Shrapnel. Now, playable games. Why I think playable games could run? Well, obviously they have their Nexus, their main flagship game Nexus, which is a shooter, third-person shooter game. But same thing as like Beam. They have their Bull subnet. They're on Avalanche. They're a gaming ecosystem, gaming hub on Avalanche. So you can start to put together that I think a lot of hype can flow back into the Avalanche ecosystem with the launch of Off the Grid being on Avalanche. So that's why we're looking at lower cap gaming altcoins. We look at playable games. One, they've been building nonstop. They keep putting updates out on their games. They also had some team, situations that they had sorted out over this year. But I do think playable games, one, their team is great. They stay up to date. They keep you updated. Their team's docs. They're out and about. You can talk to them on their different platforms. But their games, they cover different genres and different narratives for different players, all underneath one umbrella that is playable games. So I like playable games, and I think that if we're looking at a smaller altcoin, out of all of these, this is the one that I would personally be a little bit more inclined to hold or trade in an Avalanche ecosystem kind of narrative run, because it's not just betting on one single-sided game. You're betting on a whole ecosystem of games. They have their subnet, they have their nodes. That's why playable games, in my opinion, provides a lot of upside, especially at a low market cap like this. But that's my opinion there. Now moving on, Bloodloop. Bloodloop is going to be very similar to the next altcoin we talk about, but it is that third-person shooter on Avalanche. It's at a very low market cap. If you look over the 1 year, it did launch, earlier this year, not even that long ago. I believe June. They've held up pretty good. I mean, one of the better, if not the best, more recent in the last couple months gaming TGEs as far as charts go. When we look at it, they've held up quite well, and they're still at a low market cap, sub 10 million. There's some dilution going on, but again, they do have their third-person shooter game that doesn't show gameplay right on the main site like I was hoping, but it's one that I think is being kind of undervalued right now. It obviously did respond well to its most recent gaming pump. I mean, doing over a 10x, almost a 3x just in the last month. So there is some attention still on Bloodloop. They're still building. The game seems fun. It seems fine. But for a low market cap Avalanche gaming play, again, Bloodloop is where I'd be looking at. And honestly, I'd be looking at Bloodloop over Shrapnel at this current time, just for all the things recently discussed about Shrapnel. I think Bloodloop could be potentially a more solid project, in my opinion, for those things. Now, next one is Nyan Heroes, which, again, this isn't Avalanche, this is on Solana, but it's that shooter genre, third-person shooter, which reminds me a lot of like Bloodloop. I've always compared these two specifically together because they do remind me a lot of each other. But if a shooter like Off the Grid launches, I expect there to be a lot of attention on shooter game or genre shooter projects in the space, like Shrapnel, Bloodloop, Nyan Heroes, and the next one as well. Or playable games with their Nexus game. So that's why I like Nyan Heroes, and it's responded pretty well over the last month. Obviously, a major influencer, Alex Becker, he mentioned it, saying that it was a solid option and that it was low valued or undervalued at the current market cap. I agree with that statement. So now if we can obviously see that Alex Becker could potentially talk about this project again. Not that you should be trading everything off of influencers, because nobody knows what's going to happen, but there is, you can see right here, it can't be denied the fact that if Alex Becker does mention a project of the lower market cap side in his video, it does pump pretty aggressively. So that's why Nyan Heroes is in this list, because it is a shooter. It is a quality one. People do talk about it. I do think it is going to pump potentially if Off the Grid launches and it does well, because people will be looking at other shooter projects, I believe. That is just my take. But obviously, as always, I don't have a crystal ball, can't tell the future. Now, another one that we haven't talked about in a long time is Metados. With their Metados game, it is, if you look at it, Metados, it is pretty similar to Off the Grid. I don't think their website loaded correctly for me, but if we go to their Twitter, we actually see updates on their game. Now, it is nowhere near the quality of Off the Grid at all. But they do say they have grants by, Avalanche, Microsoft, Google. They also have their DOS chain as well. But, very similar. They've been doing updates also. This is a project where, when we talked about it, I was very bullish on it. I still am as a degen, I have to preference, as a super degenerate gaming altcoin trade. Not something I'd be holding for the long term, but this is what you look for. They say they have their different grants, their different backing. They're putting out updates. They put out tweets all the time. They're updating the game. We can already see by that other tweet, the old versus new. They're working on the game. The game does look, pretty solid. It looks pretty all right. Obviously, it could use a lot of improvement to catch up to something like Off the Grid, but very similar. If you're looking at a lower market cap version of Off the Grid, this is it. This is kind of like that secondhand knockoff a little bit. But the difference is that this is a sub $1 million market cap. This is similar. It's a battle royale. You get in there, you can have teams, you just fight until the last one surviving. You see the similarities there. So if Off the Grid launches and people are like, oh man, that's kind of high, what's going to be the next Off the Grid? Metados could get, that extra attention. If we see here, Metados, it was at a less than $500,000 market cap, and when gaming ran recently, and the whole market did, it did over a 2x here recently in the short term. So I think, if you're looking for a super degen play on Avalanche, and specifically something in the same kind of genre of Off the Grid, Metados to me is a great option. Again, I would only view it as a degenerate, low allocation in your portfolio trade. So please don't go throwing everything in it. There is some dilution, yes, but at such a low market cap, I don't think it's that crazy. If I remember right, I think they dilute or they vest every day or every month, I want to say. So That is worth mentioning. But either way, MetaDOS is one that I'd be looking at if you're looking for. So this is for all you degen traders out there. I mean, here's the thing: I do it too, and that is what it is. So it wouldn't take much for MetaDOS to do a 10x, especially if there is an avalanche narrative. It's going to be a lot easier for this to 10x than something like Shrapnel, in my opinion. But either way, you can kind of see the advantage there. But as a recap, what I'd be looking at as far as projects or altcoins in the space to kind of capitalize off the coattails of a successful launch of Off the Grid, because obviously tying back to it, all of this literally hinges on Off the Grid being a hit, having a good launch, bringing that attention to Avalanche and Avalanche gaming, crypto gaming. But, playing it, I liked it. I could see the potential there. If you guys haven't played it, go out, play it. It's free. PS5 consoles, PC, play the game. Even if you're not a Battle Royale guy, like personally, I'm not a huge Battle Royale player, but if you're in crypto gaming and you think it's going to be a hot narrative and you've been in the space this long, go play Off the Grid, because even if it's not your kind of game, I promise you, it is one of the better projects in Web3 right now on the gaming side, hands down. So if anything, go play it, see how far the industries came from the likes of Axie Infinity, Pegaxi, Krabata, just websites and trailers. Go play the game. I'm telling you, if anything, play it just to see how far we actually have came since the last cycle. That's my hot take on Off the Grid, but projects I think that could do well with it, with Off the Grid specifically, but also just long term, I think these projects, are potentially going to do well, is Avalanche, Beam, Shrapnel, Playable Games, Bloodloop, Nyan Heroes, and MetaDOS as a super degen trade. Again, would not hold this super long term, but I'd view it more as like a trade because it does have room to go down because there's dilution. It's a micro cap, not a whole lot of attention's on it. But either way, guys, that's my opinion, especially after playing Off the Grid all weekend. Let me know in the comments below. Have you guys had the chance to play Off the Grid? Are you not going to play it? Are you going to play it? If you have played it, let me know what you think. I mean, give me your take on it, and let me know if there's other altcoins that you would probably add to this list, or what you think of the ones that we covered in today's video. And as always, if you guys want a way of supporting the channel, it's completely optional, but much appreciated. There is a Patreon linked below. It helps support the channel. And there's also the Discord also. And as always, if you guys got value out of today's video, if you guys can like the video, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right. See you guys.